Unlike many iconic fantasy TV shows, there are very few bad episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and even the bad ones sometimes have plenty to offer. However, certain installments don't fit the mold of a typical Buffy episode, standing out against many of the best and most iconic moments of the show. Buffy was a Monster of the Week series and had plenty of standalone and bottle episodes, but the writing and character development didn't go unnoticed in those additions to the series. This makes it all the more obvious when the writing isn't up to par. Conversely, the episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer that the reboot can't top are all extremely memorable and have stood the test of time. When recommending Buffy to contemporary audiences, it's those episodes that cement the series as a fantasy classic. Of course, the installments that lack the clarity of writing and depth of character that Buffy is known for don't ruin the overall quality of the show. However, they do demonstrate that even a series as influential as Buffy can't always be perfect. 10. Double Meat Palace. Season 6, Episode 12. Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 6 lets Buffy have it from the very beginning, bringing her to her lowest point before she can come back and start to rebuild. Double Meat Palace is hard to watch, as Buffy is grappling with the adult realities of having to provide for her younger sister and sustain herself while going through so much emotional trauma. The setting of the fast food restaurant is funny, but Double Meat Palace doesn't go much further in the comedy or storytelling than the location and visuals, though Double Meat Palace touches upon some deeper themes about capitalism and Buffy's struggle to adapt to life on Earth. It's more of a gag episode than an interesting addition to the season. The conceit of the story is that the restaurant is using people as the secret ingredient in the food. It's fairly obvious, and the twist doesn't make the narrative more engaging. We don't learn anything new in Double Meat Palace, and there's no engaging villain to make us interested in the Monster of the Week. 9. Living Conditions. Season 4, Episode 2. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is arguably a fantasy TV show with no bad seasons, but Season 4 did have some low points, like Living Conditions. The entire episode feels like Buffy is stalling for time before the season's actually intriguing plots, like the Initiative and Adam, can take center stage. It's a fun concept that Buffy would be paired with a demon as her first college roommate, as it reflects the heightened version of every new student's worst nightmare. However, after saving the world time and again and facing down the mayor, it's hard to take Buffy's demonic roommate seriously and view the episode as anything more than a small bump in the road. Season 4 is hard to get into during the season's first few installments because these stories all revolve around undermining Buffy and addressing how out of her element she is. When rewatching Buffy, it's easy to skip over Living Conditions and miss nothing. 8. I, Robot. You, Jane. Season 1, Episode 8. When Buffy began in the late 1990s, technological advancements were exploding, and Buffy was consistently on the cutting edge of bringing these changes into the pop culture sphere. Before Willow became a witch, her skills at the keyboard were a huge part of Buffy's plots, and this comes to a head in I, Robot. You, Jane. However, the episode is a pale reflection of the character arc that Willow would later go through, and it lacks the nuance and emotional realism that audiences had already come to expect from Buffy, though Willow has to do a lot of work to come out of her shell as Buffy progresses. I, Robot. You, Jane, portrays her as much more passive and suggestible than usual. It comes off as though Buffy had already given both Buffy and Xander romantic mishaps in Season 1 and was rounding out the season with a similar arc for Willow. Though this provides some narrative symmetry, the villain in I, Robot. You, Jane, is too different from any other episode of Buffy to make sense within the show's canon. 7. The Zeppo. Season 3, Episode 13. It's always surprising when an episode of Buffy Seasons 2 or 3 misses the mark, as these are widely considered the show's two best seasons. However, in The Zeppo, Xander takes center stage and falls into a bad crowd once again, making for a mundane take on teenage insecurities. Xander's feelings of inadequacy are recurring elements throughout Buffy, but there are a few too many episodes when Xander gets caught up with a demon or force of darkness just because he feels left out. Coming off the high of all-time great episodes like The Wish and Helpless, Buffy Season 3 hit a bit of a lull with The Zeppo. This episode sees Xander at one of his lowest points, exploring his complicated relationship with masculinity and the way his close female friends are all considered more special or chosen than him. However, the sharp contrast between Xander's storyline and the secondary adventure Buffy is on confuses the tone and pacing of The Zeppo. 6. The Puppet Show. Season 1, Episode 9. While the pilot and season finale of Buffy are highlights of Season 1, there are a few episodes throughout the debut installment that don't fall in line with the series' tone. The Puppet Show is far from the only episode of Buffy that's a complete standalone story within the Monster of the Week format, but it's one of the weaker mysteries that the series presents. One of the only notable parts of The Puppet Show is the introduction of Principal Snyder, Scheimerman. Many parts of Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 1 were unrecognizable by the end of the series, and the quirky, nonsensical plotting of The Puppet Show is one of them. The episode takes the classic high school event, the talent show, and infuses it with the supernatural, but it never quite finds its footing. There are a few too many misdirects and red herrings throughout The Puppet Show, making it a forgettable addition to the show, Where the Wild Things Are. Season 4, Episode 18. Where the Wild Things Are is all about the characters unleashing their more animalistic natures and exploring their passions. Throughout Season 4, Buffy begins to talk about sex and relationships more frankly, putting an emphasis on how Buffy gets to explore the physical side of her relationship with Riley in a way she never got to with Angel. While this is an interesting change and shows how different Riley is from most of Buffy's love interests, Where the Wild Things Are is a little over the top. Buffy is almost completely absent from Where the Wild Things Are, and the episode suffers because of this. The frat house setting and ghostly spirits are all elements that Buffy has tackled in the past, making the storyline come off as less original. Additionally, like some of the other early episodes of Season 4, Where the Wild Things Are takes a heavy-handed approach to the pitfalls of college life, which doesn't fit with the series' overall tone. Gone. Season 6, Episode 11.